So most of you are probably familiar with the production schedule we've been using for a while. This report started a long time ago when Virocon's lead times had gone from like, a normal 8 to 12 weeks to something like 40. And we needed some way to tell Virocon what we needed and when we needed it so we could get things reserved. And then it kind of expanded after we started doing that. We realized, well, this is great. We have to preset up when we take off our glass and order it in order to meet these dates. Maybe we could do that with a bunch of things. So we started building out this whole production schedule to make it cleaner and easier to see when things had to be done, and everybody knew when the work had to be completed. So the production schedule tab shows each of the jobs for each of the shops. Shop B, we have our shop A stick, the Laverne, and then each of the columns shows you basically where the manpower at the top and then the number of units that we would produce are at the bottom, and some information about the jobs. We have a shop drawings tab that kind of indicates the people and what they're working on. We've got our takeoff matrix, which gives you the week and then when we do our takeoffs. We've got our metal tab, which basically shows how many pounds of metal we would need to purchase and when we would need to purchase it to give our vendors some better information. We've got our panel matrix, which shows when the panel fabs and panel releases should be happening, how many square feet, which vendors. Our fab matrix, which also shows all of the information about who's doing what when. And then an all activities tab that kind of sums it all up for us. A glass and gaskets tab that shows that information for the glass and the gasket information. And finally, there's a couple of tabs over here we're not really using. So this was sort of how we had it set up, but I want to show you as we move into the new world, like what we're going to be doing next. So this is the project that we worked on with Mila over the summer. Mila was our intern who built this. So this is a new web-based form. What you saw before was done in Excel. Obviously, if you're inside, we've built a bunch of macros and things like that to make it more useful, but this one is all web-based, so we can be having multiple people in it at the same time. And it's a little more real time. I had to publish the old one out so people could open it and look at it. Now, just when you look at this, it's current every time you go to look at it. So to start with, I've got these little expand all buttons, which would expand the data for the shops. And we have a very similar view to what we had before. The units per week, total number of units. At some point in the near future, these will show the number of units per week. We just don't have that in there yet. And then a graphic that kind of shows you, when the work is happening. This middle tab just is the data. This is all the data we're storing about the job. So I can show you what that looks like. So this gives us the customer, number of weeks, units per week, the shop start date, field start. So this is where we do our data entry into this area, which then feeds the rest of it. And then we have this sort of chart that shows how many units and the number of employees required to do each of the tasks. So that's sort of how we're displaying the graphic of how many units and the amount of units that have to go through the shops. The nice thing is sort of with this too, when you look up here at the top, we can change the color for the shop. We can change the font colors that are used for each shop. We can even add shops, remove shops. So if we start working with, let's say, Gilbert or something like that, we can add them to the thing and they will become part of the jobs that number of shops you can pick from, things like that. So it's all set up that way. In the shop drawing section, looks very similar to what we had before. Guys across the top, the different drafting names across the top here, and then the dates here that shows what we're doing during those time frames. Our takeout matrix, I haven't fully filled this in yet, but it's pretty close to what we had before. So our metal takeoff, IDs, check model, drafting things that have to be done, glass takeoff, store schedules, all those are listed. Just similar to what we had before. The nice part is that every job that gets added to the production schedule automatically gets put on the takeoff matrix, which didn't used to happen. So like George Schultz is a engineering only, but we've already got it in the schedule. We can kind of see where it needs to happen, if it's going to meet its dates, things like that. We have our panel matrix. Again, same data we had before, only now we can lock these dates to the actual start date, so they automatically update. And we can move them around based on how many weeks before we want to start the work. We also added some of the data for, who the vendors are, things like that. So we put some of that data in here. Fab matrix, I haven't fully fleshed out yet. I've got just a couple little things I'm just working on the setup there, but it'll be the same, just names across the top, dates along the side. We've got our all activities tab, which then shows each of the PMs and the jobs they're working on. So those are all listed here, and then all of the key dates. Glass and gaskets, again, same data here. We've got the vendor, the different coatings, whether we've done the PGTs yet. We've got the date that the glass should be ordered and the date the glass is required, total number of lights, and the different vendors that are being used. Our metal tab, very similar to what you saw in the last schedule. We've got the total number of pounds, in each of the weeks, and then it gives you, how many pounds total for the project. And then we see how many pounds down here that are required each week of the job. So that'll give us a way to level load our stuff with Western. And again, the nice part is every time we add a job to the production schedule, it automatically gets added to these areas. This used to all be manual. We had to put them in each area by ourselves. And then the nice thing is we have a field tab, which again, I haven't quite started filling out yet, but all the jobs are shown with their field start dates. And then we can fill in the total number of people that are required to do the work. So working on that still, but this is sort of an ongoing game plan, but this would be a better field schedule than we have today, because currently our field schedule isn't really showing the manpower as it gets used over the weeks. It just gives, we basically show a duration and divide up the number of hours and just stick in a number of men. But this will enable us to show exactly how many guys we need for each of the steps, so which would be really nice. Yeah, so that's the new production schedule, should be launched this week. So when you're looking at things for today, this is what we're doing. Thank you very much.